breaking news is that Governor Katie Hobbs has vetoed the tax cut plan that would have been over $1 billion over a 3-year period for the state of Arizona for taxpayers in our state. The reason she gave is saying that they have no plan to pay for it. So to talk about that is Senator J.D. Mesnard. Thanks for coming on so quickly. We really appreciate the time.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So obviously you can't be surprised by this decision by the governor, but do you want to talk about the fact that she said you do not have a plan, that the Republicans didn't have a plan to pay for this?
Yeah, what that does is put the priority of the taxpayer on the back burner, which is deeply disappointing. We can both budget appropriately and also give the money rightfully owed to the taxpayer back to them and create certainty as they're going into tax filing season. This has just sown chaos, or really continued the chaos that she started 2 or 3 months ago. It's very, very disappointing.
So the governor said she's in favor of a tax cut plan that's smaller. She said she has a plan she has sent to Republicans that she is encouraging you to pass. Will you take up and will you negotiate based on what she has sent you?
So her plan just throws our small businesses overboard, and ours is much more focused on helping working families, seniors approaching retirement. So it's a much better plan, and we like the plan. We think the people of the state would like the plan and benefit from it. We'll obviously negotiate with her, but the other challenge is that her own department, the Department of Revenue, put out forms that taxpayers are relying on. And by the way, those forms cost the exact same amount as the plan we just sent her. So it does seem like she's a walking contradiction when it comes to this issue.
Can you explain the differences? I mean, the basic differences between her plan and your plan. So so people understand when you say it throws small businesses under the bus, what does that do? What would your plan do versus what her plan would do?
So our plan would allow for small businesses to deduct expenses in the year that they make them instead of spreading them out over a number of years. This conforms with the changes that were made in the One Big Beautiful Bill, so they would not have to have 2 separate sets of books to account for different depreciation schedules, which just makes life harder for them. So we conform on that. She does not want to do that. She calls that giveaways to big corporations, which if you look at this, these are small businesses, the vast majority. So that's one of the bigger changes. We also allow for a child tax credit for working families, a deduction for child care expenses. She does not propose those things. That would be a big help to taxpayers. Those are some of the highlights, I would say.
So is there a danger if, let's say, your tax plan was passed, she signed that, is there a danger that it's not paid for?
I mean, definitely we have to approach the budget with sensitivity, but it really comes down to who are you going to prioritize first. If we had a signature on this bill, we would know the revenue pie that we are facing as we go into the budget negotiation. If she wants to wait for the budget negotiation to be done, what do you tell the taxpayers who have to file before we are going to be done with the budget negotiations, at least if history is any indication? April 15th is less than 3 months away. We usually pass budgets in May or June. What is the taxpayer supposed to do?
Yeah, that is a great question. How are you, I know this is an odd question, but how are you notified of a veto? Our newsroom knew about it. We ran with the story. Were you notified ahead of time? I know she said she was going to, but do you get notified when the governor has vetoed something, or do you just find out from us?
We get notified eventually. Sometimes they give us the courtesy of a heads up. In this case, I found out from you all when you invited me to be on the show that she just unfortunately vetoed the bill.
Now, we know the governor is no stranger to using the power of the veto. She set a record for numbers of veto in less than one term. Is this a sign of what we can expect again this year, where the legislature is going to pass a lot of legislation and the governor is going to continue to veto?
If she continues on the trend she's shown for the last 3 years, it seems likely we're going to cross over, and this is crazy to think about, 500 vetoes in her first term. I hope that's not the case, but we're already right near 400. She just got the first one of the session. We're only a week in. So unfortunately, yeah, she's been, the veto queen. more vetoes than any other governor, probably than any other governor, multiple governors combined,
Yeah.
which makes our job difficult as we try to govern.
So is it back to the drawing board? Will you try to modify your plan a little bit? And I know that there's conversations that happen. So is there a way you can negotiate with the governor's office to get something she will accept? Maybe not everything she wants in her plan. Is there a pathway for that? Or do you think this is kind of dead in the water, your plan?
Well, we're going to continue to try to come up with some kind of pathway to give certainty to the taxpayer. She claims that we have no plan, but she has contradicting plans, widely disparate between her own agency and her own announcements. She's done unprecedented actions and telling them what to do. I've never seen anything like this in my years in office, and it's hurting the taxpayer. So yeah, we're going to negotiate as best we can, but time is of the essence at this point. Mm-hmm. This is why we took the fastest action I recall us ever taking this early in session to try to get a bill to her desk. And now we're sort of back to square one.
So my last question then is, can you describe, in your opinion, what are non-negotiables from the Republicans that say these are the things that have to be in, we're willing to negotiate, but not in these areas? Are there any of those you can tell us about?
You know, probably not at this stage. We think the entire package is helpful because it includes help for working families, seniors, small businesses. It's hard to say, well, which one of those should we cut? They're all important, but obviously we need to get certainty to the taxpayer, considering filings are starting. And so there's a little bit of a gun to our head here, and all this was avoidable if she'd have called a special session, as many of us wanted a couple of months ago. We could have, prevented this situation from happening. Unfortunately, there's just been a failure of leadership from her on this, and now here we sit, and the taxpayers are the collateral damage, sadly.
Senator, I really appreciate the quick response and coming on to talk about this very important issue, and we're going to be following it closely, and we'll be calling back on you, and thanks again for being available.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. That is Senator J.D. Mesnard spending a few moments with us. The governor vetoing this tax package. She said they don't have a plan to pay for it. He said, we know what target we have. We can work on this. This is obviously the beginning of the year. We are now going to see how this plays out as the governor once again says, I'm not afraid of the veto. And she actually did veto their plan. So that's where we're at. We talked with Senator J.D. Mesnard, and we talked about the governor's veto of a Republican plan for tax cuts, which would have been well over $1 billion in tax cuts for Arizona taxpayers over the next 3 years. The governor says that she vetoed it because the Republicans don't have a plan to pay for it. The budget, I'm going to go to something else for just a moment. As a taxpayer, we may differ on the size and scope of government. I mean, that's fair. Again, I may never change your mind. My position is that the government needs to be as small as possible. I say often, I am not an anti-government person. I am a small government person. That we should force the government to be very efficient. Let's mix a couple of the topics for a moment. We have just heard from United States Senator Marsha Blackburn on the Senate floor that she believes that upwards of $750 billion with a B, billion dollars a year is fraudulently taken from government programs, federal government programs. What we're watching happening in Minnesota, where hundreds of millions of dollars, nearly $700 million in cash, has left the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, cash in luggage, flown to Somalia. So every one of us ought to make it much more difficult to commit acts of fraud. If you don't believe, we just know here in Arizona, there's a couple that has just said that they defrauded people, medical fraud. We also know that the people that had these rehab centers that were supposed to be helping people with an addiction issue defrauded to the tune of $1 billion here in Arizona. We're not immune. We're not immune to bad actors doing bad things. The governor talking about the ESA program. Her criticism of the ESA program is we're not policing fraud well enough. And I am someone that believes if there's fraud and the superintendent, Tom Horn, is doing what they can to recoup all of this money, but they got to pay people. It's not an easy thing to do, but their eyes are on it and they're doing something about it. Are we doing the same thing in other programs? Are we doing it in the school districts? We give the schools a lot of money. The schools complain they don't have enough money, that they can't pay teachers what they deserve. But if we really taken a look at their budgets and how they spend the money that we send them, are we that concerned as a taxpayer? So that topic, along with this, now you go and look at the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and what they've done, and how over the past few years they've cut their budget. They've cut their budget by 10%. They still don't carry any debt. They've moderated property tax rates so property taxes weren't climbing while home values and rent were going through the roof. They did that to save the taxpayers and make sure you kept more of your own money. That's just the policy of the board. It ought to be the policy of the legislature. So you've got legislators, and this doesn't make any sense to me to believe this. Do you believe that the legislature is giving handouts to big corporations? No, they're not. That a taxpayer, whether you are writing a check with a lot of zeros or very small number of zeros, you should know that your government is running as efficiently as it possibly can. Does anybody, I don't care which side of the political aisle you're on, do you believe that our government runs as efficiently as possible? I don't. I don't. I also understand that corporations, and I'm not saying just big corporations, small businesses. I was a small business owner. Keeping more of the money that you've earned, the government hasn't earned it, you've earned it. Then allowing depreciation, that boosts sales. If there is a company that can take the depreciation for a piece of equipment, when you go back to the original Trump tax cuts when they happened in his first term, I sat with our governor and the vice president back then as they talked to small business owners about what they would do if that tax cut went through. And when they talked about depreciation and they talked about a lot of these other things, they said, we will buy more equipment. We will, if one of them was an auto mechanic, an auto shop, and they said, we're going to buy more diagnostic equipment. That diagnostic equipment can cost $100,000. But if we can take that depreciation, we'll buy it. We'll put up, we'll hire more people. It fosters growth. And all of these things work. Everybody should pay a fair amount. But if you can spare any taxpayer, I don't care, the no tax on tips, the no tax on elderly people on retirement, on your retirement wages, no tax on overtime. I came from the trades. We lived for overtime. If you're an hourly worker and you make a nice wage and you like your wages, and then someone says to you, the boss says, hey, I need someone to work on Saturday. You know how many hands go up? You know how many people want that extra income? Now imagine you being able to keep that money. What does that do to productivity? What does that do? So it's not just rich people, but the same principle works. If you're the person cashing the check and the government says to you, we're not going to tax your tips, all of you bartenders, all of you single mom bartenders that are tending bar because it allows you to adjust your schedule around your children's education and activities. And it allows you to bring cash home at the end of the night to feed your family. So you deal with the long hours and you deal with the people and you deal with the nonsense because you're making a good wage. And the government steps in and says, we're not going to tax those tips. Keep them. What does that do to the income? What does that do to the finances of a hardworking single parent? What does it do to a man or a woman working in the trades that goes in on a Saturday morning and misses a kid's baseball game or a soccer game to make extra cash for their family, but when their next check comes in, that overtime isn't taxed? What does that do to productivity? It goes through the roof. Well, if it works for the smaller income people, what about the people that write the checks? What about that electrical contractor that says, I need you to work on Saturday? When they get to keep more of their own money, it equips them to buy more trucks and to buy more tools and to be a better employer. The idea that all these people are just hoarding money, that small business and big business owners, that big businesses are Ebenezer Scrooge and they're just sitting there yelling that just because it's Christmas, you can't put another coal on the fire. Why should I give you part of a day off? You're stealing from me. That's not what business owners do. The idea that the government should keep this because they can't, and who runs their finances better? I'm getting worked up about this because who runs the finances better? Does a small business owner or even a big business owner, do they keep track of money in, money out? Or does the government? Who's more efficient? Let's talk about some of the programs the governor loves, and that is what we're doing to address the problem of homelessness. We just had St. Vincent de Paul on the air yesterday. Shannon Clancy, the CEO of St. Vincent de Paul. You know why? They had a program that they wanted to make sure that for every person that they got out of a situation of being homeless and got them rehoused, they wanted 12 people that they kept from being homeless. They came on because the program is working so well. The number is not 12 to 1, it's closer to 33 to 1. That's efficiency. That is a private organization that understands the dollars it collects are volunteer dollars that can be taken away at any time. They have respect for being good stewards of that money. I'm not dragging them into this political conversation. I'm using them as an example of efficiency. St. Mary's Food Bank, 5 meals for $1. 5 meals for $1. Do you think you get that kind of efficiency from food assistance programs? I'm not saying we shouldn't have the programs, but do you think we're getting that kind of efficiency from a food assistance program? We're not. So how dare the government say, we are keeping this money. We're not going to look at our budgets. We're not going to rein anything in. We're not going to get rid of the fraud. We're not going to trim the fat, but you will. Business owners will. It doesn't make any sense to me. We'll see. We're going to see which way this ends up going.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.